Okay, so this is my screencast for my COMP308 final project, a survey site, and I am Kevin Cam. So what is this website about? It's basically a site where one can make true and false surveys. It also allows anonymous users to partake in it, so users that are not required to log in order to do the surveys. But also, users that are logged in can also partake in these surveys as well. So here are some of the technologies that I use. I use mean.js, Heroku, MongoLab, and GitHub. So basically, for the reason why I used mean.js was because it provided me with scaffolding and a bunch of features which I didn't have to implement myself. However, there were difficulties in doing so, and I'll address those later in the presentation. Heroku is a site that I use to host my website, which is something that I think everyone else has been doing. And of course, MongoLab to store the database stuff, and GitHub to store the code. Oh, okay. So user management. I didn't really change anything with mean.js in terms of user management. I just basically use the default system. So I'm not going to go too much into that because that's pretty much self-explanatory. So we go on to server creation and edit, and the idea is that in order for a user to create a survey, they have to be logged in. So let me show that here now. I'm going to log out first, and I'm going to try creating a survey with being logged out. So test 5, number of questions, let's say 4, choose value, non-active, and I'm taken to the sign-in page, and yeah, okay. So let's log in and create a sample survey. So I'm going to go and create one. Test 5, number of questions 4 again, and I'll do non-actives because I want to show that this survey will not be available to users if it's not non-active. So question, let's do question test 5 question 1. Oops. Alright, and submit. So basically what was required before was that I had to have a title, number of questions, and active as required attributes for the survey, and then it dropped me to another page where I had to enter the question titles. So let me show you the part where the user, okay, as you can see, active surveys, test 5 is unavailable. So let me just sign in again. And here's test 5, and go to edit. So basically, as you can see, we can edit titles, we can edit the question titles. I'll set this as active. However, the thing is that we cannot change the number of questions for this survey. So I'm just going to go and update. And I'll sign out again. And as you can see, test 5 is on the home page for non-active users. So anybody can partake in a survey. Okay, only survey owners can view stats, and I'll show those later. So right now, as an anonymous user, I'll take test 5. So true, false, false, true, submit. I gotta thank you for taking the service. So now, in order to see stats, we have to log in because only the survey owner has the ability to see stats. So this is test 5. As you can see, this is the page. I could just do one just to show that a logged in user can do surveys as well. Sorry. And I'm gonna go and show the stats. So as you can see, stats are arranged with these progress bars. So true, there's number of respondents is 2, true is 100%, 0% for false, 0% which is pretty basic, right? So because there's 2, respondents, therefore the percentages are pretty basic. There's also a reset stats function, so let's click on that. Click on version 5. As you can see, all the stats are back to 0 again. Security. So basically, if you looked at the URL for the editing and stats part, you can actually access one way is that you can access is actually putting a URL. I'll show you what I mean by that. As you can see, if you click edit, this part here has an extra edit string, and we'll just copy this URL and sign out. So if we put this here, we shouldn't be able to access it because we're anonymous users. I mean, we're anonymous, sorry, and only survey owners have the ability to edit their own stuff. As you can see, edit survey, you do not have permission to edit this survey. So yeah, that's one feature. I think that was part of the requirements, I guess. So, so some of the things that I think I would like to have in my project was OLAP sign-in. That's not, well, I haven't actually tried doing it, but I didn't have enough time, so rather than stressing out and it wasn't really a requirement, it's something that I feel like I might try doing later. Dynamic survey sizes. I would have liked to be able to create surveys with multiple questions based on however much the user wants. Like it's not dependent on 1 to 10. Could be maybe 20 questions, but also each of these questions could have multiple responses to their own liking. This of course is for something like multiple choice. True and false, of course, it doesn't matter, but that's a little more complex and something that I presently am not sure how to do. I would like to have more survey types like short answers, multiple choice, and also multiple models. I know that this isn't really a feature, but it would be nice to be able to have the survey object, model, only have certain attributes, while another collection or model has other aspects of the survey, such as one contains the questions, the other contains survey titles and stuff, so that it's a little more manageable rather than have everything in one big giant model. So some of the challenges and things that I had to resolve was, one of them of course is understanding mean.js. This was really difficult because I'm not really great in JavaScript, so looking through the code was a big challenge, and it sort of felt like being a scientist in a way, because you had to prod and poke certain parts of the program to check if the responses and the behavior of the app is something that you think is supposed to occur. So you make theories and hypotheses, and that's what I actually had to do. I had to write down some routings, like you've changed this, you had to change that and change this in order to, it was quite difficult. So in the end, I don't think I really understood mean.js to the fullest extent that I wished. However, I learned enough of it so that I was able to complete most of the requirements for this assignment or project. So another thing is, I rather would have had radio buttons for the true and false questions written rather than a drop down, but I felt that since the drop down worked, maybe I shouldn't bother doing radio buttons, and maybe that's something I would look into if I ever do another iteration for this. And the other challenge was anonymous survey entries. So that required a lot of work, in the sense that I know that one strategy was to create a anonymous user that's always logged in if someone's not logged in. However, I didn't go towards that route. What I did was I disabled I disabled authentication and user login requirements for most of the pages. The way the way that I did it was with that disabled, I did authentication statements within the HTML document so that if a particular person was not authenticated, then it would hide that part of the website. Or or if nobody's authenticated, then it will show that part. So that was my strategy for the anonymous user entries. So these are challenges and issues. So these things I couldn't get to working. I talked briefly before about the two models not working together. I originally had a surveys model and a questions model. Questions would be the one that held the questions and the responses, while survey was just the title and stuff. I couldn't get those to work together. So with time running out, I just did what everyone else did, which is basically create one big survey model and just dump everything in there. The other thing I couldn't do was the SCV export and email exporting system. I tried using no mailer, couldn't get that working. I'm not really a network person because there's a lot of networking terminology which I'm not really familiar with. I also looked at examples, they didn't work, so it might be something I might try later today because it is 8 o'clock and I have about 3 hours left. So I might give it one more shot, but I don't think it's going to be really successful, so I'm just going to put it out there. So here's some screenshots. I'm just going to skip with these because this is just for this presentation. And that's basically the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.